Hey there YouTube, AJ here, and it's cold today. It's not really temperature cold, but wind is blowing. It's making it really cold. Anyhow, today we're going to start preparing to get our motor that's in the frame of my hot rod back together. Right now that motor has no camshaft, it has no valve assemblies, so yeah, all that's got to be taken care of. No lifters. So what we're going to start doing, I've already taken all my valves that I'm going to be using, and I had to scavenge one valve from another motor, but I've taken those valves, I've run them through my ultrasonic cleaner for a while, got most of the gunk off of them. There's still some stuff that needs to be cleaned off. That's why we got the bench grinder with the wire wheel out here. We got to do the final cleaning on the valves, and then also on the lifters. Now, on my 3D printer I made this little handy dandy box to keep all my parts organized. On this side here you can see it says driver's side, cylinder 5, 6, 7, and 8. The lifters are in the box below as indicated by here, lifters. On the front here, this row is exhaust valves, this row is intake valves. Similarly on the driver's side, this row is intake valves, this row is exhaust valves. And then over here on this side it says passenger side, numbers of the cylinders, and back here I don't know if you can see it or not, but I've marked it towards transmission just so I've dummy proofed this thing for myself that I won't get it mixed up. And basically what this allows me to do is keep all of the different valve assemblies in the bore that they came out of, minus the one that I had to it was a bent valve, and I'm having to use a valve out of the other motor for that one. So that one's going to be is not going into the bore it came from. The Acme Jalopy and Speed. Don't steal that. That's trademarked by me. That's a brand that I'm coming up with later in life here, hopefully by mid-year I think. Anyway, the reason we're cleaning these up is I need to lap in the valves in the block. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is clean up the valves, clean up the lifters, and honestly I'm just going to have a few seconds of that on here because you don't want to see a time-lapse video of me doing all these valves. That's just going to be boring. Heck, it's going to be very boring for me, so bear with me for 3 to 5 seconds of time-lapse video of this, and we'll be on to the next stage, which will be lapping them in. Okay, so we got a valve all nice and loose in its guide, cleaned up spring. This is an exhaust valve. You can tell because it doesn't have another group for seal. Cleaned up lifter, and yeah, so this one's ready to be lapped in. However, I still need to do 15 more of these, so it's going to be a while before I'm ready to do that. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch that. I know it's boring. It's boring to me. Plus it's cold out here, and stopping to film and talk is a pain. Anyway, I'll bring you all back on when I'm ready to lap these valves. Okay, here we are inside. Everything's cleaned up. We've got lifters, we've got valve assemblies. These valves here are from the other motor that I've saved. I saved 4 valve assemblies, 2 exhausts, 2 intakes. However, this intake is really bad. See how corroded it is? That could break at any time, so this one's really not saved. The valve guide is kind of saved. We could reuse that one if we had to, but really this one's kind of out the window. We're not going to be using this valve unless we absolutely had to. Fortunately, we don't. Out of this engine, only one valve is bad, and that's this one. And I don't know if you can see it, but it is stuck in this guide, and it is bent. And so this one's definitely bad. This was actually the same cylinder and lifter as this lifter here, which has the bottom ripped out of it. So obviously this valve bent, this jammed up, the lifter bottom got ripped out by the cam destroyed itself on the lifter, flat lobe, you know, motor done. So we replaced this lifter with this one out of the other motor. Fortunately, out of all the lifters from that other motor, they're all corroded pretty bad in one way or the other. There may be one or two more out of here I could use if I had to, but they're not great. But I had 3 that I considered usable. Oddly enough, I had 2 lifters that came out of this engine, the good engine. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but they are severely worn in the middle. Like they're dented in pretty good. So they're definitely just not comfortable using these. I put a straight edge over top of it and it's a pretty good dish in it. So I replaced those 2 with the other better lifters out of this one. So I ended up using 3 lifters out of the old one. I'm going to have to use a valve assembly, and this is an intake valve. That's where the seal goes. And I have a whole intake valve assembly good from that other motor. So we're just going to substitute this whole one in here. We're going to take the spring out of it in small pieces, and I'll save this valve guide by cutting this out and driving this valve stem out of it. But in the meantime, this whole assembly is going to take that one's place in the motor. Now, the other ones, you may notice that some of these are pointed down. Some of these are not assembled and with this step up. And that's because these don't go in very easily. They're kind of gunked up in the middle. So I'm going to take and clean all of my lifters out with a couple of brass bottle brushes. Now this spring that came with this bent valve here, there is, let's see if it's it. Yeah, this spring here, I don't know, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but it's got a bend in it. So this spring has been messed up. So we're going to take this spring out, take the spring from this bent valve guide, put it into this one, and now we're good. So the last thing we need to do before we can lap in our valves is clean all the bores on these intake guides and with the bottle brushes, and get those all to where all of the valves will slide up and down, not just some of them. I should note that when I was wire wheeling this stuff, you know, I went really heavy on the valve guides themselves because really the wire wheel is not going to hurt that. Same with the springs. The valve itself and the lifters, I made sure I did not wire wheel the surfaces where they'll be riding. So like this little part in the center here where the valve stem goes and the end of the valve stem, I did not wire wheel those. On the valve stem itself, I used very light pressure just to get the gunk off of them. I didn't, like, you know, really ride it hard on the wire wheel. And then on the cam, bottom of the lifter where it rides on the cam, I didn't touch it either. So just wanted to make that clear that, you know, you don't want to just go to town and wear the surface that you're going to be using. So let's get to cleaning these out. And when I use these little bottle brushes like this to clean bores, a lot of times what I do is take these loops on the end, I crush them flat, and then I can chuck them up in my drill and make the process go a lot faster. So that's what we're going to do now. You can see now we have 2 valves still up, and that's because This valve will go in this way, but gets stuck coming through. There's a burr on here that we got to get rid of. Need to ream out the end of this one. I don't really have a file handy. Just use the nose of my needle nose Leatherman. See if I can get it with that. And this pan is just to catch the dirt falling out of it when I clean them. Nope, still not good enough. I'm gonna have to go get a file or something, or I'm gonna have to do something to get this through. There's just a little burr there that's catching, it won't go through. Like I said, drops in fine to there. So we gotta fix that one. And then this one goes in and sticks about halfway down. Goes in and sticks just a little bit, so I can't, this valve doesn't look bent, but it acts like it's got a bend in it. Let me get a straight edge. All right, I don't think it's bent. Let's I don't know. I think it's got just a little bend in it. And that is not good, because if I hold it against the bottom, I can see the gap a lot easier. When you hold it against the top part of it, which is the longer straight part, it's really hard to see the tiny gap down here. But if you do it, hold it against the bottom, you can see how much it gaps out at the top. So yeah, this valve is bent, which sucks because I don't have another intake valve other than this one that is really corroded at the neck. And I don't want to use that. So now I got to find an intake valve. Or maybe see if I can use an exhaust valve instead of an intake valve. Exhaust is going to be the hot side. Yeah, so I'm going to go do some research and see if I can just use one of these exhaust valves in that place. If that's the case, I got two to choose from, and we can move on. Okay, so I found out you can use exhaust valves for intake valves, but you cannot use intake valves for exhaust valves. At the same time I found that out, I found out the difference in my types of keepers I have here. These valves out of my other engine, they have a different keeper style on them. It's a single piece keeper. And they go with these lifters, which are just slightly shorter than the later lifters. So since these lifters are shorter than the rest, the earlier lifters, I went ahead, because I had them, and used the two exhaust valves so they'd be matched up with these two lifters. I was already using the lifter here for this intake valve, so that's all good. The valves will interchange even though there's some slight differences with them. One of the differences is the distance from the bottom of the valve to the groove. So that's different between the two size valves. And then the keeper system. This one uses a single piece keeper. And then the newer valves use a two-piece keeper system like this. And then the little retainers go down in here. But these are called rotator or self-rotator valve assemblies to help them rotate in the bore and on the lifter to keep everything wearing correctly, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, since I was going to be using these two exhaust valves with the old lifters, I now had exhaust valves available to use for this intake valve here. So we just went ahead and did that, and now we're ready. It's not ideal, obviously. I'd rather have 3 more rotator assemblies. I'll look for them, see if I can find them, but the way I'm trying to get this engine going, I don't think it really matters. Now that the valves are all cleaned and ready to go for lapping, got a tear down some of my motor here. I got to take the heads off. I'm gonna have to take, you know, some of my generator out of there, my mock-up stuff, and I also need to take off the intake. Let's get this off and get that going. I know I can use this brush to clean my valve guides, but I don't know if I can reach into the lifter bores, but we'll give it a shot here, and we'll just have to clean out the bottom end as best we can when I pull the oil pan again, because I'm not gonna drop that right now. So we're gonna continue with this redneck valve job, and oh yeah, it reaches all the way through. Okay, can't really, you need a light. See if it's doing anything down into the lifter bore. I mean, I'm sure that's gonna have to get cleaned better. Well, that one's pretty clean. All right, so I guess we'll just run it like this, and I'm just gonna have to do my best to clean the bottom end out later, but we got to keep moving forward. Again, we're just going to try to get this thing running one way or the other. I'm not going to redo the rings or anything first. I'm just going to go ahead and get the top end freed and moving, and then we'll clean it all up, and we will try to get it fired with the rings as is, and we'll just see what happens from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean all these out, and then we can at least get the valves lapped in. Well, I got everything as clean as it's going to get, I guess. I did clean off the valve seats again. I mean, I know I'm going to try to lap these in, but I probably won't get complete seals. I mean, my compression is going to be low, one way or the other. There's like this one's pretty bad, so I don't know. If we can get this thing running at all, it'd be amazing. But we're gonna give her a shot. So I'm gonna go ahead and start lapping valves. So the next thing I'm gonna do here is just take some motor oil and put it on the inside of the bores. Just keeps flash rusting from happening. I want to do it on the lifter bores and on this. I don't know how long it's going to be when I get the lifters in. So I'm just doing this to put a coat of protection on, the surface I just cleaned. Can't hurt. As grimy as this engine is, more oil in it's not going to cause issues. And this is also giving me a chance to get a good feel on the lifter bores to see if there's any rough spots or places that I need to work a little better. But so far so good. They all feel pretty good on the driver's side so far. And then when I actually go to put this all back together, I will use assembly lube instead of, this is just a temporary measure, just to kind of hold corrosion at bay until I get the cam in it and start assembling the top end back up. All right, lifter bores all felt pretty good. So now let's do the valve guide bores. And I'm going to do those from the bottom as well because I don't want to get oil on the surfaces I'm going to be lapping here in a little bit. Although I just got splashed a little bit on it. Those all felt good on that side. So it seems like I got them cleaned pretty good. I think those bores all got cleaned out pretty well. So That's nice. They all feel really good and smooth. So hopefully things will go together and come apart without too much trouble. All right, let's get my hands cleaned up and we'll get ready to try to lap. I think I'm going to hold off on the 3 oddball valves and not lap those yet, because I am trying to find 3 more valves, an intake and 2 exhausts, the same as these 2-piece ones with the rotator part. If I can find those fairly quickly, I will go ahead and use those rather than, you know, using the older style. All right, I'm going to pour a little bit of the oil into this little pill bottle, and what we're going to do with that is dip our valve stems in them, because we want them to be lubricated when we do this. It is important to keep the valve guide and valve you're using for each cylinder together, and once they're lapped in, they're lapped in. That's why I made this whole little box, to keep everything in order. So we're going to lubricate the stem, put it in our guide, take a little bit of that lube, put it on our lifter, drop our lifter, or not our lifter, what do you call that thing? The guide. All right, so our guide slid in nicely. That's good. We have our valve in there. What we haven't done yet is put on some lapping compound, and I'm just using Permatex valve grinding compound. I guess the way this stuff works is as you lap it in, the grit starts rough, and eventually, and it like slowly turns small, like a smaller grit. Squirt a little bit of compound on our valve seating area. That may be too much, I don't know. And again, I have never done this before. I really am just kind of what I've learned off of the internet and playing this by ear. Once you get your compound, lifter in place, valve in place, then you use your little stick and suction cup dealie, put it on there. You hear that like grindy sound? These are big end. You go back and forth. Shit. I don't know if it's because it's so cold or what, but the suction cup isn't really sticking. They're not very flexible right now. There we go. Then you turn them a little bit, spin them, turn them, spin them, turn them, and repeat that process until it smooths out. And it's not sticking. These are just too cold to like flex the way they need to. The grinding is getting quieter. So anyway, you run it back and forth, move it, do it in another spot, and keep going around like that. Sounding better though, the gritty sound is going away. And I kind of want to do this with a drill. Let's wipe this down and see what it looks like. See if it looks good or not. Okay. One of the things I see people doing is after they lap it, take the guide out, put the valve in, shine a light in behind it. So it's not too bad. It's looking pretty good actually. Like I said, there was a little bit of pitting in this one. And if you look at the back side of the valve edge where I was grinding it, it looks mostly smooth. Let's like I was talking about, let's put the valve in, get a flashlight, put it in here. All right, when I push in on it, I'm not seeing any light around it. When I like hold it in the center, I'm not seeing any light sneaking around. So maybe I've got that one pretty good. I think we're gonna let that one go. I think we'll call that one good. And move on to the next one. Do the same thing, put some oil on this, put it into our guide, put in our, well, we got to get a little bit of grinding paste. And this one's actually in pretty good shape, so I think, you know, it'll be easier than that last one. Slide her in. This valve, this guide's a little tighter, it doesn't want to drop in. There we go. And so it dropped in, so but it's a little tighter. And we just start repeating this process. I'll show you from this side. On this one, hear that grittiness? There we go. It's already starting to smooth out. This one's going a little easier than the last one. Maybe it's just my learning curves are better. Now all these valves, except for the 3, are coming out of the same holes I used to. Well, there's 4 that, because I had to use our intake, an exhaust valve for one of my intakes. That's not here nor there. The idea is that most of these valves are going to be already pretty closely mated to these seats because they came out of these holes. But there's some corrosion, and I'm just trying to made them a little better because it sat for so long. I think it's, but a lot of these are going to be, like this one I feel is going to be really good right from the get-go. Yeah, this seems like it's pretty good. Alright, so let's go pull this one out, clean it. I will be surprised if I see light on this one. Okay, put our flashlight in there, center up the valve and hold it down, look around the edges. And I am not seeing a bit of light, so we're good there. And now we just need to repeat this, what, 14 more times. That's where we're at. Okay, well on this one, there's a pretty good nick right here in the valve seat. So I can definitely see light through that spot. It's pretty good everywhere else. I don't know if I'm going to be able to clean that one up enough to seal light. This valve seat's pretty well worn and chewed up. It's got some bad spots. This is the worst right here. They're all the way. Yeah, that's all the way through the edge. There's no way that's going to seat 100%. So we're going to have a leak there. That's on the intake side. So that'll be a loss of compression for sure. I'll lap it a little more and hope for the best, but maybe I'll put some JB Weld in that. Yeah, that's not good. This one's chewed up bad. Yeah, overall, I don't know how well this one's going to handle, how this one's going to do, but give it our best shot here, I guess. Okay, ever looking for the shortcut, I took my spare suction cup, my 1/4" drive extension, put it on there, put it in the drill, got it on low speed, and I'm running it back and forth, like so. I run it forward, and then I reverse it, and then do that. So I've done that a lot of times now. So hopefully that will make this process go a little faster, and let's see if it did anything for this chewed up valve seat. Okay, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I did get them all lapped in, minus the 3 on this side that I don't have the 2-piece keeper valve style, the rotator valves. If I don't come up with some extras of those valves soon, I'll just go ahead and lap these in, but for now I'm going to wait and see if I can get some. I got a lead on some this week, so maybe I'll have them by the end of the week. Anyway, if I get them, if I get them or don't, I'll just lap those last 3 in on my own later. They won't film it. But so on this side, the 5 that I did lap in, no light, all good. On this side over here, only the one intake that has this chunk out of the seat had some light leaking through. So that one's, there's nothing I can do. I know I joked about putting JB Weld in it, but that's not going to hold there with, you know, the valve slamming down on it. And that's just a useless thing to even try. The only thing I could think of is if you zapped a little weld on it and then filed or, you know, reground the seat down. But I don't think that's going to work either. Not with my skills. So we're just going to have to live with it and see how bad it is. And yeah, we're going to move on from there. So once I get those last valves lapped in, I'm going to go ahead and put my cam from the other motor in this one and get my lifters in and assemble these valves and drop them in, have my valves in. Then I can put my heads on with gaskets and everything and be done with it. So thanks for watching. Again, this is not a how-to video. In fact, most of the stuff I do is just me learning. So I would say follow someone who knows what they're doing, not me. I'm just kind of making stuff up as I go. I do research on the internet and YouTube videos and try to figure out how to do this stuff. And a lot of what I do is just kind of a compromise, best practice with the budget I have. In the end, the edges of my valves all look good, and the valve seats themselves all look pretty good in here. This one's a little rough, but it didn't have any light leaking through. Oh no, I didn't lap this one yet. That's right. This one was missing, one of the 3 missing. This one, and this one. So those 3 haven't been lapped yet. The rest of them all look pretty good and seem to be lapped well. So yeah, we're ready to keep moving with this thing. And we're going to see if we can get it running with putting minimal money and effort into it. No effort. I'm putting a lot of effort into it, but we're going to try to get it running with little money in it. So until then, next time when we go to put in the cam and get the valves and heads put back in it, later YouTube.